So a couple weeks ago we discussed railguns within the Expanse, which are one of the three main forms of ship-to-ship weapons we see within that universe. And I figured today we could take a look at one of the more common weapons we see utilized, the torpedo. I'm Colin, and this is Sci-Fi Deep Dive. Remember, if you enjoyed this video, to head down below and hit that subscribe button. So when we see long-range engagements happening in space within the Expanse, we often see one weapon used far more than anything else, the torpedo. Or as some people call them, missiles, although they do seem to function more like torpedoes and they are referred to as torpedoes in the show, so that's what I'll be calling them in this video. But anyway, with the torpedoes clearly playing such a prominent role in ship-to-ship combat, I figured today we could take a dedicated look at how torpedoes work within the Expanse and why they're such a good weapon in realistic science fiction. So let's start by talking about how these torpedoes work. Well, in a lot of ways, torpedoes in the Expanse are like miniature spaceships. They have their own engines, reaction control systems, and likely their own guidance computer. These weapons are then programmed with a target before they leave the vessel that fires them, and then hone in on an objective, be it a pre-programmed location in space, or something that they're actively tracking with the torpedo's onboard sensors. Now, some torpedoes likely don't have the necessary equipment to sort of track a target on its own, instead relying on a mothership to sort of guide them to their target, but it does seem like a lot of torpedoes are fully capable of honing in and engaging targets on their own. Once they arrive at their target, they can deliver a variety of explosive warheads, from plasma weapons to nuclear weapons. And these warheads can be devastating. A single torpedo hit is usually enough to knock a ship out of action, if not completely destroy it. Very few ships actually survive torpedo impacts, and the ones that do tend to have been hit by torpedoes that were at least partially non-functional, duds or deactivated torpedoes, which wouldn't obviously do the same amount of damage as a functional weapon. So why are torpedoes so commonly used in the Expanse? Unlike a railgun round, which is incredibly fast, the torpedoes actually aren't that quick. However, they are very maneuverable and can go very long distances. This means that while an enemy ship may see the torpedoes incoming, dodging it is a whole nother matter altogether, and swarms of torpedoes can overwhelm defense systems, leaving targets basically helpless. You see, the torpedoes in the Expanse have one key advantage over the ships that we see them engaging. They are smaller, more nimble, and unmanned. While a ship may be limited in the kind of maneuvers it can pull by the survivability of its crew under high G-forces, a torpedo doesn't have that same limitation. They can pull turns that are impossibly tight and travel at remarkable speeds because they don't have to try to keep a human crew alive. But on top of that, because the torpedo is smaller and has less mass than a ship, it can accelerate at a far faster rate. And because of that, it can basically turn on a dime. If it needed to, it could come to a complete stop, reorient itself, and then fire its engines once again towards a target at a different location. On top of that, torpedoes add a little bit of tactical flexibility because they can be disarmed from afar, allowing an attack to be called off while it is in progress. On top of that, torpedoes are actually relatively simple weapons for a faction to manufacture and utilize. While more advanced technology, things like railguns for example, require very specific mounts and high amounts of energy to operate them, a torpedo can simply be pasted to the side of any belt or skiff and utilized basically from there. They don't need any fancy complicated launching mechanism, they can just be released from the side of a ship. This means that torpedoes can very easily be fielded by smaller factions, things like OPA sects and even pirates. Now, all that being said, while torpedoes are very effective weapons at long range, they're not completely unstoppable. A thorough point defense network, for example, would have a fairly easy time shooting down one or two torpedoes, which is why they're normally fired in salvos instead of individual shots. That's why we see a lot of the ships within the Expanse having thorough point defense networks. They're not necessarily intended for ship-to-ship combat, but instead intended to shield the vessel against incoming torpedoes. But overall, the torpedo is a very effective weapon, and I'm not surprised we see it used as much as we do. Their relatively low cost, long range, and ability to home in on targets that are moving, possibly evading, make them invaluable weapons on the battlefield. However, they aren't the only long-range weapon we see deployed on the ships in that show. Another major one is the railgun, and if you'd like to learn more about railguns within the Expanse, I'll leave a link up here to my video on that. And I want you to let me know down in the comments whether you think Belter torpedoes are really that much different from the ones developed by the inner planets. Do you think Mars and Earth really benefit that much from the research and development funds put into developing better torpedoes, or do you think they're all really relatively the same? And if you have anything else you'd like to see me cover in the Expanse, leave it down below in the comments. Last but not least, if you enjoyed this video, head down below, hit the like button, the subscribe button, and the bell icon so you get notified when I upload new videos. So for Sci-Fi Deep Dive, I'm Colin, and I will see you next time.